All right, wrapping up Pac-12 week here on YouTube, and I'm going to say it again one more time for the people in the back, the hard of hearing, or people who aren't watching Uncle Lou every day like they're supposed to. Yeah, I've learned more doing these Pac-12 videos than I learned doing any of the other conference week videos that I've done. Of course, we've done the ACC, we've done the Big Ten, the Big 12, now doing the Pac-12 SEC next week. I freely admit the Pac-12 is the conference I knew the least about, and I've learned a ton. I realized that when it comes to the people that watch this channel, there are probably the least amount of people who are fans of teams in the Pac-12 than any of the other Power 5 teams. But hopefully you enjoy some of these videos anyway, and like me, you learned a thing or two. But anyway, let's get going with today's video, the games of the year within the Pac-12.
Turn it up.
Hey, good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on YouTube today, so thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also, and in addition to that as well, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year, and sometimes they're even watchable. And yes, I think this video will be watchable. We're going to talk about some of the biggest games within the Pac-12. Do me a favor, if you're a fan of a team within the Pac-12, pick your favorite Pac-12 video that I've done over the last 3 or 4 days, or maybe it's this one, and share it somewhere. I'm trying to hit 20,000 subscribers before the season starts, and I need you guys' help in order to do that. So pick out your favorite video, share it somewhere, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, walk across the street, knock on your neighbor's door, tell them subscribe to Uncle Lou. Yeah, you already know it'll make them smarter and lower their cholesterol, so the benefits are honestly endless. So do me that favor. All right, here we go, games of the year. Now, some of these are on here because I think they're huge games. Some of them are on here because I think they're big games. Some are on here because I think they're going to go a long way toward deciding who wins divisions or conference titles here. And honestly, some are on here just because they're interesting to me for one reason or another. We got a lose and you might get fired game on here. So anyway, we're just no particular order other than starting at the beginning of the year and working through the end of the year. September 7th, Stanford on the road at Southern Cal. Now, this game could be huge for Clay Helton for a lot of different reasons. Cross-division game. Both these teams sort of took a step back last year based on their expectations and what they thought they would do. Stanford, of course, still had a pretty good year. Southern Cal, terrible at 5-7. Rebound years for both these teams. Southern Cal gets this game at home, which is going to be a theme as we run through some of these Southern Cal games. I think some of the biggest games of the year for Southern Cal, they get at home. They got to find a way to win some of them, including this one. This will be a good game here. Stanford will probably be a favorite. I don't know. These two teams probably pretty even, honestly. I think Southern Cal is more talented, but Stanford, I think, is much better coached. But anyway, I think this is one to keep an eye on. September 7th, Stanford on the road at Southern Cal. All right, sticking with the Southern Cal theme here. Utah on the road at Southern Cal. So another home game for Southern Cal here. This one on September 20th. Winner could win the division here. I think Utah's the best team. They won the division last year before losing in the Pac-12 title game. I think Southern Cal's the most talented team, though. They're just terribly coached. Whittingham at Utah, it's not the case there. He's one of the most consistent and one of the best coaches, I think, within the Pac-12. Winner could win the division here if Southern Cal can get things turned around. Most people have Utah pegged as the favorite in that division. Like I mentioned, you got to at least consider Southern Cal every year just because they tend to be the most talented, right? We'll see. Again, these first two games here, I think, are winnable games for Southern Cal, but these are games last year they lost. Not necessarily these games in particular, but games like this, right? They got to find a way to turn those losses into wins, especially if Clay Helton has any hopes keeping his job, which my thoughts are clear on that. I don't think it's going to happen. He's in way over his head. But anyway, September 20th, Southern Cal hosting Utah. All right, here's an interesting one here, especially if you like offense. UCLA on the road at Washington State. Chip Kelly versus Mike Leach, right? So you got probably the two most creative offensive minds within the Pac-12. Chip Kelly at UCLA, Mike Leach at Washington State. Chip Kelly had an absolutely abysmal year last year at UCLA. Mike Leach had his best year yet at Washington State, coming up just one game short at the very end of winning that division and finally, for the first time in his career, making a conference title game. Didn't happen. But this is a cross-division game here. Regardless of what you think about Chip Kelly and UCLA, they're not going to be a 3-win team. The trajectory heading this way. He needs a couple of recruiting classes. He's had that now, or at least one full one, partial one the year before. He was hired late. You got a certain type of player to run that offense. Quarterback is key. Of course, in a Chip Kelly offense, it's a lot like Scott Frost in Nebraska in that way. You got to have a quarterback. It all starts there. with Chip Kelly and UCLA. I don't think anybody expects him to end up doing what he did at Oregon, which is basically win 11 games a year and dominate the conference for 4 or 5 years. But no one expects 3-9 either, right? This could be a Big 12 game here. This could be a 50-50, you know, both teams scoring the 50s here if UCLA's offense can figure out what they're doing under Chip Kelly, and Washington State can replace record-setting quarterback from last year, Gardner Minshew, was that his name? We'll see. Both these coaches love to put points on the board, up-tempo type of thing. We'll see how it goes. Chip Kelly versus Mike Leach, interesting for a lot of reasons. UCLA on the road at Washington State. All right, game of the year in the Pac-12, without question, Oregon on the road at Washington, right? Both in the Pac-12 North, both ranked in the preseason. These are the two highest ranked teams. These are the two best teams, I think, in the Pac-12. Both want to win the division. Both want to win the conference. Both want to make the playoffs. Both can't do that. You made the argument that neither can do that. But the loser of this game definitely ain't doing that, I don't think. I don't think the loser of this game has a way to win their division, and I don't think a non-division winner is making a playoff out of the Pac-12. I just don't. I don't think a two-loss team would make it either, which makes this game huge if you're an Oregon fan because you got to play Auburn week 1, right? So if Oregon somehow loses that Auburn game, this becomes absolutely must win. But Oregon at Washington, huge game here. Oregon does lose week 1 to Washington, right? Then turns around middle way of the season and loses this game at Washington. Even if they win the rest of their games and run the table and they're sitting there at 10-2 and then win the Pac-12 title game at 11-2, I don't think they would make it into the playoff. You know, if Washington were to stumble and lose 3 or 4 games, so Oregon still wins the division, then wins the Pac-12, they're sitting there at 11-2. I just don't think a 2-loss team from the Pac-12 is getting in. You could, you know, make this, that could be fair, unfair, whatever. But the point is, the perception of the Pac-12 right now is such that I just don't think a 2-loss team would get in, and that makes this Oregon at Washington game huge, especially if Oregon is sitting on the 1 loss already from Auburn. I'm not saying that necessarily will happen. I haven't decided who I'm going to go with on that game yet, but the point is, Oregon at Washington is definitely, without question, the biggest game of the year within the Pac-12. How about Utah on the road at Washington? We could see this game twice this year, right? Utah from the South, Washington from the North Division in the Pac-12. Could play twice. These are the two teams that met in the Pac-12 title game last year. A lot of people expect them to meet in the title game again this coming year. Of course, we talked, maybe Southern Cal has something to say about that. Can one of the Arizona teams, I wouldn't be completely shocked if one of the Arizona teams ends up winning that division. If one of those two teams can put some things together and get hot, that wouldn't shock me. The Pac-12 South, not a great division, but Utah at Washington be a good game. You got two of the best coaches, I think, within the Pac-12, and Whittingham at Utah, and of course Chris Peterson at Washington. This is a huge game here. This could be a Texas-Oklahoma situation from last season where you see these two teams play in the regular season and then meet again in the SEC title game, similar to Georgia and Auburn in 2017. But this will be a big game here. Washington hosting. Washington's schedule setting up good here, getting Oregon and Utah both at home. Those are two of their tougher games of the year. This is what I'll be keeping an eye on. All right, here's the game I was talking about earlier that comes late in the year that I think is a winner get fired game for Clay Helton. And this is UCLA on the road at Southern Cal. Let's recap here. Southern Cal gets Stanford at home. I think they need to win that one. They get Utah at home. I think Utah's a better team, but I think Southern Cal has better players. Utah's better coached, but Southern Cal gets them at home. I wouldn't be completely shocked if Southern Cal ends up winning both of those two games, but this UCLA game is an absolute must-win for Clay Helton if he has any hopes or dreams of keeping his job, I think, at Southern Cal. UCLA brings Chip Kelly in last year, year one. They were absolutely terrible. Talked about that before, going 3-9. One of those 3 wins was against, you guessed it, Clay Helton and Southern Cal. That cannot happen again if you're Southern Cal. You cannot get behind your crosstown rivalry when they've got Chip Kelly. Listen, UCLA's direction is going to head up. I'm not saying that Chip Kelly can recreate at UCLA what he did at Oregon in terms of basically dominating the conference for 4 or 5 years, winning a bunch of conference titles and things like that. Maybe he will. But regardless of whether you think that's going to happen or not, you have to recognize the fact that UCLA is not going to get worse from where they were last year over the next 2 or 3 years under Chip Kelly at having 3 wins last year. They're only going to get better. Southern Cal, on the other hand, appears to be on a downward trajectory. Like I said, I'm just not big on Clay Helton. He's got to find a way to win this game. You cannot drop 2 in a row to your crosstown rival, UCLA, during a rebuilding period for them when they've got a new coach, a coach who is a proven winner in Chip Kelly. You cannot let that happen. If UCLA beats Southern Cal again this year, that's it for Clay Helton, in my opinion. I don't think he would be able to survive that. I don't think he should. This will be a huge game to keep an eye on for that reason and other reasons too. But this is one of the ones on my list. All right, and finally, I've got the Apple Cup, I think they call this, in-state rivalry, Washington State versus Washington, at Washington this year. So Washington State and Mike Leach go on the road to take on the Huskies. Mike Leach actually beat Washington. I think it was his first year at Washington State, but he's lost the last 6 in a row, I think. So he's like 1-6, Mike Leach is, against in-state rival Washington. Now, we know that Washington State was terrible when Mike Leach got there, and Washington has been on a pretty good run here lately under Chris Peterson, but still 1-6 is 1-6, no matter how you want to slice it or dice it, right? The loss last year really hurt Washington State. Of course, they were sitting there. They were undefeated, weren't they? Or did they have one loss? I think they had one loss heading into that game. Ended up losing, cost them the division, cost them a shot at the conference championship. And some people, lunatics mainly, were even talking about Washington State having a possibility to make the playoff heading into that game last year at Washington. Of course, it all fell apart at home for them when they took the L to Chris Peterson, Jake Browning, and the Washington Huskies. Washington's got a new quarterback this year, Jacob Eason. He's got a ton of talent. Played for Georgia in 2016. We've been over this 100 times. Got hurt game 1 of 2017, sat out the rest of that year, then transferred to Washington, had to sit out last year because of transfer rules. So now here we are 3 years later, and Jacob Eason getting ready to get back on the horse here. I'm a believer in Jacob Eason. I think he'll have a good year. This will be a good game, though. 2 good offenses here, 2 pretty good coaches here. Again, Mike Leach versus Chris Peterson. If you're a Washington State fan, I know you're high on Mike Leach. You got to wish he'd start beating his in-state rival every once in a while, though, don't you? Lost 6 in a row to him? Not good. Anyway, those are the games that I think will define this year within the Pac-12. Either, like I mentioned, either in terms of who wins the divisions and plays for the conference title, playoff implications, coaching, hires and fires as we go through this season here. Those are the most interesting games to me this year and the ones that I'll definitely be keeping an eye on. Appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button on this video. Doesn't take you any time or cost you any money, but it's a huge help to me and I would appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up button now. And I'll talk to you guys again real soon. Have a great morning.
Turn it